Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for Promoting the Child's Right to Play, or shortened to IPA-USA. IPA-USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and you can find out more about IPA World at ipaworld.org. There are 23 countries who advocate for play. As part of our efforts to promote play, we have created these Porch Play Chats, and these are just conversations that focus on a wide range of topics with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find the latest Porch Play Chats and learn more about IPA-USA on our website at IPA-USA.org. If you click on that upper right-hand corner, you'll see the link to our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and our YouTube channel. One Porch Play Chat is released every Monday on both the IPA-USA website, our YouTube channel, and our Facebook page. So if you subscribe to the Facebook page, you'll always see the latest Porch Play Chat. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA-USA. And with me on the porch today are Crystal and Jessica. And Crystal and Jessica are teachers in the Oklahoma public school system, specifically in Edmond, Oklahoma. Crystal has been an elementary teacher for 15 years and has experience as a special ed teacher, an assistant principal, and a head principal. And each year she has recognized more and more the importance of play in the classroom and that children learn best through play. You're like one of our peeps, Crystal. Jessica has her degree in elementary ed and has been teaching first grade in Oklahoma for 7 years. And she was selected as Teacher of the Year. Congratulations for her district in 2020. And this sparked her interest to grow as an educator. She's on the district committee of first grade teachers who have been working to develop and implement purposeful play into classrooms. And she's a strong believer in the power of play. So again, one of our favorite peeps. So the title of their session today is Prioritizing Play in the Public School Setting. And so I have a question, as always, and you sent me 2 proposed questions. I want to know both of them. So elementary school primary grades hold a range of expectations and accountability. So how and why have you decided to use play-based learning? And either one of you can start. Just go.
I can go ahead and start with my perspective as a first grade teacher. First grade in particular is a monster of a year as far as the expectations that are put on the teachers and the students, where they come to us and where they leave requires a huge amount of growth. And throughout the years of trying to meet that end growth goal, I constantly found myself realizing that as much as I was making our learning playful, I wasn't prioritizing a time set aside just for play. That's more unstructured. That's not task-based or led by me. And as soon as our district early childhood coordinator started planting the seeds of bringing up play time, purposeful play within the classrooms in first grade, because they'd already been doing it in pre-K and kindergarten, I jumped right on board. And since implementing it, I've seen that while a lot of early childhood and elementary education and certified teachers in particular, a lot of the time we push back because we think we already don't have enough time in our day. I can't carve out a chunk of time just for play. They go to recess already. That's enough, right? But when I started actually implementing and prioritizing that specific time in my day, I noticed the transfer of skills, and that while initially it seemed like I was taking time away from instruction, I was actually using my time more effectively. And so I was able to see that academic growth through their play. I was able to see their social emotional growth that they then transferred into their daily interactions with other students. And I was able just to see that transfer of applying what we're talking about in class in really authentic and natural ways. And that led to longer, growth overall throughout the year. And so I had to kind of shift my mindset from, I'm not taking time away to instruct less. I'm just using my time more effectively. And my team of teachers, we all were on this pilot program to implement it in first grade. And we constantly tell each other, I could never take this away. This time is invaluable. And it's something that needs to be prioritized.
So Jessica, what I'm hearing from you is that what it helped you recognize, again, because I understand you have all this pressure from parents and from administration, that here's all the things you have to get done. So when I'm faculty at a community college, and one of the things that I always tell pre-service teachers who are moving into the education field is that, if you just let children play, it will be amazing the number of things you can check off your checklist of goals that they need to accomplish by the end of the year.
Exactly.
Because that play is integrated, right? Very integrated, not siloed by subject.
Exactly.
Jessica, what you gave teachers already who will be viewing this is the rationale. I love how, and I already forgot it because I'm old. So I want you to go back and say what you, instead of seeing play as recreation, you saw play as, it wasn't just recess, it was.
Right. I was able to view play as a time to use my my time with my students more effectively. I was able to see that transfer of our academic skills, which I had been teaching, and I was able to see them using it authentically in ways that they were clearly going to remember beyond our school day. Whereas if I have a reading block, a math block, a social studies block, and it's all very task oriented, it's always very much led by me, no matter how playful I was making that and how interactive, that's a great strategy for teaching those strictly, academic pieces. But when you provide that time for play, you're able to see them apply that on their own. And that's far more powerful than me just having them do an activity with me or a project with me. You're able to really see the growth, and you're able to find those holes or misconceptions that maybe I didn't realize they had when they were doing, a more task-oriented activity with that academic instruction that we were doing.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of it, right? You're able to, through observation while they're in these play experiences, they can actually apply. So we know that we can pour knowledge in, but until they do it in a real world, it's difficult for them to make those learning connections.
Exactly. And play is a great way to level the playing field. And I noticed that a lot with students last year when we were implementing it. I mean, talk about, the effects of COVID, and there's learning loss and students are in different levels. But when you let kids play, you're able to see they don't feel like they're behind. They're all on that same playing field, and they're just applying what they are taking from what I'm teaching them. And they all have opportunities to be successful, and they all have opportunities to solve problems without feeling like I'm going to do something wrong or I'm not good enough, I don't know enough. And so you're really able to see the growth and the impact that play can have on those students who don't typically enjoy school. Even already as a first grader, school is really hard for some kids. But when you make it focused on play, it's not intimidating to them because they are built to play.
Yeah, they are built to play. And I love how it opens the door to being curious and exploring and discovering that wonderful Bruce Perry learning cycle that is such an important element. Crystal, what has been your experience in being more playful?
I think exactly what Jessica was saying. I think before, with the pressure of we've got to cover all of these standards and this curriculum, I think it was an afterthought. We knew it was very important, but we didn't feel like we had time to do it. So it would be the first thing maybe that would get, shoved out of the schedule of if we had to cut something to fit other things in. So making the shift to that is academic learning time. That is how kids learn best, and making it a priority, but with purpose. has just been a big shift for us. Because like I said, kids are not in that box yet. They don't know that, well, this is just the way we do things in society. They don't have all of that on them yet. Why can't we have, you know, something this way? Or what happens if we try this? Maybe something as adults we're not going to think to try, but those kids will do it. And so it makes, it teaches us, you know, educators, and challenges us to try to think outside the box and look at things through their perspective too. Because they, you know, they do have that inquiry more naturally, I think, than we do. So they have to be able to play to get that inquiry and experiment with things.
And I think the power of what both of you are saying is that you took a risk, right? You.
Well, and I'll say, yeah, because I think sometimes we try to fight too with people think teachers are just glorified babysitters.
Yeah.
And so they hear if kids are playing that, you know, that involved no effort from the adults just making sure they're safe, not really interacting with them. And so I think there's also that fear of we're not teaching because they're playing. And so, you know, I think it's just educating people on, yes, it's play, but here's all the standards we're able to assess and check their thinking and those misconceptions like Jessica mentioned. So I think there is that side of it of making sure that people are educated and still respecting us as, you know, the professionals, and having the knowledge on early childhood development.
Yes, and I think that is a key learning. So how did you introduce play to the parents when they're, you know, I was a director of early care and education for years and years, and then I was a kindergarten teacher, and we always played in kindergarten. And parents would say, you know, I asked them what they did yesterday, and they said all they did was play. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, are they learning? I said, yeah, sure. Here, let's look at what they learned yesterday. And so then I started in the daily notes that I would send home, because back then we didn't have the internet, just so you know how old I am. In the daily notes I would send home, it was, this is what we did today. This is what they learned today. Ask your child about blah. And the parents were like, wow, they came home and they were talking about blah, 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 blah. I said, how did you teach them all that in one day? I said, we played.
Yeah.
It was like such an aha for the parents that academic instruction is taking place all the time. And just because they're playing doesn't mean they're not learning. So how did you convince parents in Oklahoma, in Edmond?
I know that from my perspective, as that classroom teacher, one of our learning platforms that we have is a digital platform called Seesaw. It's an app, and I'm able to communicate with parents through either messages or videos or pictures. And I found that it was really important and impactful for me to capture those moments during Purposeful Play just as much as their center activities or their small group reading, especially with the photos and the videos, to share that directly with the parents, showing them their child going through that process of playing, but, oh, look, you know, I am in this discovery and the sensory learning area, and they were using different instruments, and they're talking with their peers about the vibrations, which is exactly what we've been learning about in science. And, oh, they're over there in, you know, the construction, and they're building communities, and they can hear me asking them, you know, what type of community did you create? You know, is it urban or rural? And showing them those moments, I think, is eye-opening to the parents, because kids are going to go home and their favorite part of the day was play. And, you know, they always want to talk about that first, which should be a sign to us as educators and parents that that's important if that's the first thing they always come to.
That's better than going home and saying, what did you do today? Nothing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, which is why I started sending him those notes. Ask your child.
Exactly. But letting parents kind of have that glimpse into why that time is important and what they're really able to work through and problem solve through and communicate through their play. I think that was eye-opening for parents. And I felt like that's the biggest, quickest way to get parents on board, is for them to see the things they're not seeing. And luckily in this age, well, luckily, and, you know, it has its pros and cons, you know, now they want to see everything, and I'm still not always able to capture everything, but getting to show them those glimpses that in the past we didn't necessarily have the means to do. I think parents are able to see that and say, oh, I didn't realize that all of that was going on.
And just think of the power those glimpses of for parents are in getting them to think, well, does my child have enough time to play at home, or are they, you know, locked onto the computer screen or the TV, or maybe they should be outside more.
Right. Yeah.
Crystal, do you have anything that was powerful for you in helping parents recognize that this wasn't just recreational?
Yes, I think what she said, our Seesaw has been huge for our parents, because when it's unknown, when they don't see it, you know, they just don't know what it looks like. I think especially this last year when they got to actually see the teachers teach through some of the videos and things, I think it was eye-opening, because parents think school might be the same as it was when we were in school. And so if a kid needs makeup work, or we're sending work home, or sending graded papers home, they're wanting to know where's all the worksheets that, you know, their kid has in it. And so we have to have kind of that conversation of, that's not best practice. That's not how we teach anymore, but that's what parents know from maybe when they were in school. And so it is that education process of, there's not always going to be a worksheet or a paper. And so it's exactly what Jessica said. We're having to capture it through videos and pictures and explaining it other ways, so that they understand how teaching and learning looks so much differently today than it does. It's been interesting, kind of like you said, when the teachers have watched, or when the parents have watched some of the teacher videos when they were doing remote learning with their children during COVID, some of them would have these very reflective conversations with the teachers of, you know, picking up how the teachers, you know, taught different things or presented concepts, and, you know, really had some good thoughts, and hopefully, like you said, a shift at home of thinking, oh, when we're doing this at home, you know, I might do it the way that I saw their teacher do it.
Which really validates you as a professional, values the education that you went through, and helps parents see that teachers are important, right? Yeah. That you can't, and I think that of anything with COVID, families recognizing that teachers are important was a big eye-opening. You know, you don't just send your children to school, wow, there's a really good teacher there. And I need to honor teachers. So I think those visual images and the dialogue that you're able to show them in those video clips are just powerful. I mean, you know, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So there it is, learning happening. So can you, for the audience, can you give them an idea of what the day looks like and what the classroom looks like? So start either way you want.
So we still have obviously designated times for certain subject areas, but we obviously try to integrate all of our learning throughout the day. So we have a reading block, but it's also integrating your science, your social studies, much like you'd see just in a typical classroom that's trying to use best practice. But what we did when we implemented Purposeful Play is we carved out a chunk of time, about 30 minutes in first grade. So it's a little bit shorter than our kindergarten time period that they have set aside, but about 20 to 30 minutes. And we don't touch that time. If you're running behind on something, it doesn't cut into Purposeful Play. That's something that you'll pick back up the next day. And where that chunk of time is can be dependent on a teacher's preference or your schedule. I know the biggest thing when you're presenting this idea of Purposeful Play to teachers that they get stuck on is, where in my schedule can that possibly fit? And so they have that ability to put that chunk of time where it best suits them. And that changed as we changed different schedules last year. Because we were on a blended schedule and our days looked different when the kids were only there 2 days a week. At the beginning of the year, I had a chunk of time in the morning and a chunk of time at the end of the day. Once the students came back all together, I combined those times. We took a morning recess in the morning, and it counts as part of our time towards purposeful play, but it's a different kind of type of play because we're outdoors. But then at the end of the day, I still had that chunk of time of purposeful play with our 4 learning areas that we as a district decided first grade would implement. And during that time, the students get to, this year, hopefully, without all of the COVID restrictions, will get to choose. Last year, they had to be with cohorts, but the ideal situation would be that they choose which learning area they want to go and play in. And so the 4 areas that our first grade teachers will implement in their classrooms in our district are, we have creative arts, discovery and sensory, imagination, which is like dramatic play, and construction. But within those 4 learning areas, there's always reading materials, there are always writing materials. And so they're able to really, again, integrate different aspects, and those learning areas can bleed into each other. So they can take things from the imagination over to construction to create, this awesome community that now has the little figurines of the farmers and the cows. And so it really is just this designated chunk of time, but it's purposeful play. So it's not just free play. It's not entirely, just free for all. We have those learning areas set in place. I strategically place different materials, different weeks that can kind of lend themselves to correlating with what we're learning. It's not a task, and I'm not leading it. And so I help by providing different materials in those different areas, and then they choose how they want to use it. And a lot of times they'll use it in ways I never would have thought of, but you're still able to authentically see them making those connections. And the biggest part about that time when the students are playing is that that's not a break for me. I'm not, a recess monitor just watching them do whatever they want. I am strategically going around to each student, each learning area. I'm asking those higher level thinking questions. I'm having them explain how they're problem solving. I'm watching them as they try to apply those social emotional skills, which are really tricky in first grade. I'm able to watch them try to work it out on their own. And if they need assistance, I'm able to kind of walk them through that. And so I think that's a really important aspect of the purposeful play that we've implemented, is that in order to really be able to say they're still meeting standards, it's still academic, I have to be ready to go in and do that work of, okay, she just explained she created an urban community. Check, I have a list, I can check, that's a standard. I already know that she knows that. She doesn't need a paper, pencil, paper. I don't need to call her back one-on-one. She showed me authentically through something that was important and meaningful to her. So that's kind of what it looks like at this point.
Which must really cut down on the time where you're having to do assessment.
Exactly. It's I go back to such a better use of time. I'm not taking time out of my day. I'm using it more effectively.
I love that.
Appropriately for them.
Crystal, what does your day look like?
Well, I'm the principal now, and so we're implementing at our school. I like what Jessica was talking about. One of my favorite examples was in our kindergarten purposeful play. We had some friends that decided they wanted to start a donut shop. And so again, at purposeful play, you're seeing how they interact with their peers and how they kind of negotiate of, because you always have that one kid who wants to tell the other friends how it's going to be. So you have to kind of see them, work those negotiation skills. But they started a donut shop, and they made sure it was very important that in that donut shop hung a sign that said no smoking.
Oh, good. Isn't it hysterical what comes out once you have the opportunity to just listen for a while?
Right.
And you can see what's important to them and what they're interested in. And it may or may not have something to do with what is happening in social studies or science, but often it does, because they were curious about it and they wanted to see what it feels like.
Yeah, and I can remember in being in one of Jessica's peer classrooms, and these kids were building, and I watched her interact with the kids, and it was cool for me to see, because I was like, oh, she's assessing math. Oh, and I could see what standards, what she was asking and how they were manipulating. And I knew exactly she was hitting the measurement standards in first grade. And so as an educator watching her, I know what she was doing, but the kids didn't. And
Yeah. No
like
idea.
Jessica said, it's more fun for you than pulling them at a table and here, let me hit you with some flashcards or something and make sure that you know this skill. It's not higher order. So it's more fun for everybody, but it's also really more problem solving, critical thinking that is the end goal anyways.
And so, Crystal, I want to say, what would be your message to other principals? You know, there are principals who, you know, I feel really sorry. I do an 8-week course with principals and superintendents on early childhood, right? And we play in these sessions. One of the things they tell me is, they said, I had no idea. My degree is in, my certifications in middle school or my certifications in secondary. I know nothing about little kids. And so this is it. I need to figure out what I'm doing first so that I can figure out how to embed these playful, active learning experiences within my classroom. So what advice would you give to principals?
Well, yeah, my background is mild special education. And so I have mild special education elementary degree. But then when I stepped into, you know, the principal roles and got to go watch all these amazing early childhood educators, I was like, everybody needs this. It doesn't matter if you're in pre-K or 5th grade, or if I'm teaching adults, this is how we learn. An adult doesn't want to sit there for an hour. A little kid can't sit there for an hour. We want to talk. We want to work with a partner. We want to do project-based. We want to do all of those same things. So if it's not fun to you, it's not going to be fun for sure to a little kid. I think the proof is just in the outcome. You know, we started implementing just some extra recesses and things, and there's that pressure that we don't have that time to do those things. But I just came to the realization that they're going to take it. They're supposed to be doing this boring worksheet. They're going to make it into a paper airplane and try to poke it on the pencil and do they're going to make that playful because that is what they're designed to do. And so make it, you know, flip it, make it purposeful, give them that time. We see it reflected through their behavior and self-regulation and their ability to attend to task. It's that quality over quantity of, you know, just time that they are engaged on task, and focusing on the learning rather than the teaching. You know, I think we're just like, okay, check the box. I taught it. I taught this. I taught that. I taught that. Well, did they learn it? And so we're going back to that learning of, you know, I just shoved all this information at them, but are they authentically applying it? Are they taking it outside of these classroom walls? So when they're wanting to bring stuff from home to add to this project and they have this idea, and, you know, you have kids essentially writing business plans for animal rescues and selling purses and doing business plans at 5 and 6 years old. I don't know how much, you know, that's what we want them to do as adults. If they're already practicing those skills, then good job us.
I know, good job you. Well, and I think part of the fear for principals and superintendents is that children won't be as successful as if you drill and kill, right? The flashcards, the direct didactic teaching. And so can we go back, Jessica, to the classroom? So is your classroom rows of desks? Is it tables? Is it what other materials other than the 4 discovery centers for Purposeful Play? So can you describe what the classroom looks like?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not a rows of desk type of teacher. My students are always seated in groups, and those groups can be flexible throughout the year. I do implement many different flexible seating options, so the students have lots of choice. Whether they're on the carpet, they have different, you know, options of where or what they could be sitting on there. We do have a designated carpet area because we do a lot of community building, and that's a great place for us to meet together. But even when we're down there, the students still have that freedom and that choice to, you know, I learn best or I interact best if I'm sitting on a stool, or if I'm standing up here, or if I'm sitting on a cushion. And so a lot of my classroom is centered around different areas where the students can gather together, but then also lots of opportunities for them to have the choice of what that looks like for them. And so it's not a desks in front of the board, everyone facing the same way, spread out. It's a lot of creating those opportunities for that community and that group and that interaction that happens through play. And so even in times where you don't consider it a play time, it's a learning time, it still lends itself to being playful and interactive. And again, you're able to see the transfer of those social emotional skills as well when you're giving them those opportunities constantly.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I always try to get teachers to think about what alternative seating can you do and show them visual images all the time. So I would love if you take pictures of your classroom for me and email them to me so I can add those to my current repertoire. So Crystal, as a principal, you've talked about, you know exactly what skills that teacher is assessing when the children are in their purposeful playtime. And so I know that some principals are saying, well, how do I encourage my teachers to take these risks if they're not bought in to purposeful play at this point, and it's not a mandate? So in Oklahoma, I know you have the wonderful state law that was just passed, and we just highlighted that legislator in our quarterly PlayBased. But what if I don't have that law? And how, and I believe in the value of play as a principal, but how do I communicate that to my teachers?
I think find those success stories, find other districts that they can see videos or go visit someone that has bought into it and talk. I think that your best messengers are people that went into it skeptical. I can think of several initiatives that I thought, this is dumb, this isn't going to work. And then it's the same thing of what Jessica said. Once you've done it and you go, oh, well, actually, I could never go back to doing it, the way I did before. When you know better, you have to do better. And so I think, having those vicarious experiences at first and hearing the successes of maybe of somebody else that thought, I can't afford to give up these instructional minutes, but here's what happened. So I think that's kind of the first step, is for them to see it and just talking to the kids. I love watching the teachers because, like I said, I can tell what they're assessing and I'm like, haha, I see math. But also I love going around and talking to the kids too, and they're explaining their thinking to me, which is so much easier for them to do through play than tell me about this worksheet you're doing.
I know. And it is sad to me that worksheets are still, I mean, how many trees do we kill? So let's talk about the environment, but that's not active or purposeful, right? It's just drudgery. So we have 2 minutes. I can't believe it, but we have 2 minutes to wrap up. What are some final thoughts that you have, words of wisdom, strategies, ideas that you could give to teachers who might be listening, and principals who might be listening?
Just look at the research. I love the Purposeful Playbook. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but I just kept going, wow, this is great. And it's some of it's stuff that we know, but we forget when we get caught up, in the pressure of all the mandates. It's like, the pendulum swings in education.
Woo,
and it's like, it's going back to what we might consider, old school or something. But I mean, I think look at the research and try it. And I think just give yourself permission not to do it perfect from the get-go, just to experiment and dip your toe in the water. Like Jessica said, our district, I think, was smart that they kind of rolled it up. They started with, pre-K, or somewhere that was, of course we play in pre-K. Nobody would question that we're going to play in pre-K. That doesn't sound odd. And so then as you had success there, then to start rolling it up through the lower grades, by the time it was first grade's turn, they were like, give it to us now. We want to know about this amazing thing that everyone's doing. And that there's this buzz going because these other teachers have had such positive experiences that now everyone's starting to get buy-in. So I would say start with the place where it's more natural and look for those teachers that are going to have buy-in and that are willing to experiment and give permission that it's not going to be perfect from the start.
Right. Oh, I think that's great advice. Jessica, do you have any closing final thoughts?
I would just encourage educators to take the risk. And as they're taking that risk, to pay special attention to how it's affecting the students, because ultimately everything we do is centered around our students and how we can best serve them. And it's so easy to get caught up on the data and the expectations and the requirements. But if you're truly watching your students and viewing them as children and seeing what's best for them as children, you'll notice this thing that I thought was a risk is actually the exact thing that they needed to make this all work. And so I just encourage them to take that risk, but then as they're doing it, pay close attention to, this isn't a risk, this is actually everything that they've been needing to make everything else fall into place.
Well, and I think the next Porch Play Chat, if you guys are willing, should be about how the behaviors, how what you were seeing before play changed. I think that would be another big motivator for both principals and others. So I'm going to wrap us up, but don't go anywhere. So for more information on Porch Play Chats or IPA-USA, please visit our website at IPA-USA.org. And please, until next time, keep on playing.